Have you ever wondered what it would be like to know exactly when you'll die? Not just a vague sense that we're all mortal, but a precise date and time, circled in red on your calendar, counting down with unwavering certainty. For most of us, this thought triggers an immediate discomfort. There's something profoundly unsettling about knowing the exact moment when our story will end. And yet, paradoxically, many of us aren't actually afraid of death itself. We've made our peace with the fact that one day, we will no longer be here. What terrifies us is the knowledge of precisely when that moment will arrive. This distinction between accepting death and fearing the knowledge of its timing reveals something profound about human consciousness and our relationship with impermanence. It's a distinction that Buddhist teachings have explored for over 2,500 years. The Buddha himself confronted this paradox directly. Before his enlightenment, as Prince Siddhartha, he lived in sheltered luxury until encountering the four sights: an old person, a sick person, a corpse, and an ascetic. These encounters revealed to him the universal nature of aging, sickness, and death. Yet his spiritual awakening wasn't about escaping death. It was about transforming his relationship with it. Today, we'll explore this fascinating paradox through the lens of Buddhist wisdom, why the certainty of death can be accepted, even embraced, while the certainty of its timing can fill us with dread. We'll examine what this reveals about our minds, our attachments, and our potential for freedom even in the face of life's greatest certainty. Before we begin, if you find value in these explorations of ancient wisdom for modern life, please consider subscribing to our channel. Now, let's dive into this profound contemplation together. There's a famous Zen story about a samurai who approached a master and asked, "Is there really a heaven and a hell?" The master replied, "Who are you?" "I am a samurai," the warrior replied. "You? A samurai?" the master exclaimed with a tone of surprise. "What kind of lord would have you as his guard? You look like a beggar." The samurai became enraged and began to draw his sword. "So you have a sword," said the master, "but you're probably too incompetent to cut off my head." As the samurai raised his sword, the master calmly said, "Here open the gates of hell." The samurai, recognizing the truth in the master's words, put down his sword and bowed. "Here open the gates of heaven," said the master. This story illustrates something profound about human consciousness. It's not external circumstances that create our heaven or hell. It's our relationship with those circumstances. Similarly, it's not death itself that creates our suffering, but our relationship with it. When we contemplate the difference between accepting death and fearing the knowledge of its timing, we're exploring this same territory. What is it about knowing the when that transforms death from an abstract acceptance into a concrete fear? The Buddhist teachings offer profound insights into this paradox. In the Anguttara Nikaya, he taught that contemplation of death, when practiced correctly, plunges into the deathless, has the deathless as its final end. This seems counterintuitive. How can thinking about death lead to something deathless? The key lies in understanding that Buddhist practice isn't about denying death or pretending it won't happen. Instead, it's about transforming our relationship with it through clear seeing. The Buddha recommended daily reflection on death. "I am subject to aging, have not gone beyond aging. I am subject to illness. I am subject to death, have not gone beyond death." This wasn't to induce fear or depression, but to awaken a sense of urgency, samvega, and clarity about what truly matters. However, there's a crucial distinction in how this contemplation is framed. The Buddha didn't advise fixating on exactly when death would come, only that it will certainly come, and often when we least expect it. In the Bhattacharya Sutta, an auspicious day, the Buddha teaches, "You shouldn't chase after the past or place expectations on the future. What is past is left behind. The future is as yet unreached. Whatever quality is present you clearly see right there, right there." This teaching points to a profound truth. our suffering often comes not from present reality, but from our mind's tendency to project into the past or future. Knowing exactly when we'll die forces our consciousness into the future in a way that can prevent us from fully living now. Let's explore why knowing the exact timing of death can create such profound suffering, even for those who have accepted death itself. 1. The countdown effect. When we know exactly when death will arrive, life can transform into a countdown. Each passing day becomes marked not by its own inherent value, but by its position relative to the end. This creates a particular kind of suffering that Buddhist psychology would identify as a form of craving, tanha, and clinging, upadana. We begin to crave more time, to cling to each moment not for its own sake, but out of fear of the approaching end. This transforms what could be natural appreciation into desperate grasping. As the Dhammapada teaches, from craving springs grief, from craving springs fear. For one who is wholly free from craving, there is no grief. How can there be fear? The countdown effect intensifies both grief and fear because it gives craving a specific timeline. We know exactly how much we stand to lose and when. 2. The planning mind versus the present moment. Human consciousness has evolved remarkable abilities to plan for the future. This capacity has enabled our survival and flourishing as a species. However, this same capacity can become a source of suffering when confronted with a future we can anticipate but not change. Knowing when death will arrive activates our planning mind in a situation where planning is ultimately futile. We cannot plan our way out of mortality. This creates a particular kind of cognitive dissonance and existential frustration. Buddhist practice offers an alternative to this planning mind, the cultivation of present moment awareness. As the Buddha taught in the Bodhicitta Sutta, true freedom comes from fully inhabiting the present moment, neither chasing after the past nor placing expectations on the future. When we don't know the exact timing of death, it's easier to return to this present moment awareness. The uncertainty itself can become a gateway to presence. 3. The illusion of control. At a deeper level, knowing when we'll die confronts us with the ultimate limits of our control. While we might intellectually understand that we can't control everything, many of us operate with an implicit sense that if we just plan well enough, work hard enough, or make the right choices, we can shape our lives according to our desires. Death represents the ultimate boundary to this illusion of control, and knowing its exact timing makes this boundary painfully concrete. It forces us to face not just our mortality, but our fundamental vulnerability and dependence on conditions beyond our control. Buddhist teachings on non-self, anatta, and dependent origination, paticcasamuppada, directly address this illusion of control. They reveal that what we call self is not a fixed, independent entity, but a process arising from countless interdependent conditions. This understanding doesn't eliminate death, but it transforms our relationship with it by loosening the grip of the separate self that fears its own extinction. 4. The dual nature of time. Another insight from Buddhist psychology is that human beings experience time in two distinct ways: chronological time, what the Greeks called chronos, and qualitative time, kairos. Chronological time is measured by clocks and calendars. It's quantitative, linear, and objective. Qualitative time is experienced through the richness, meaning, and depth of moments. It's subjective and nonlinear. Knowing exactly when we'll die forces us into chronological time. Life becomes measured by how many days, hours, or minutes remain, rather than by the quality and depth of our experience. Buddhist practice, particularly meditation, offers a way to shift from chronological to qualitative time. When we're fully present, a single moment can open into timelessness. As many practitioners have discovered, even a brief period of deep meditation can feel more substantial and real than hours spent in distracted activity. This shift in time perception doesn't deny death's reality. but it transforms how we experience the time we have. Given these insights, we can begin to appreciate why not knowing exactly when death will come might actually be a profound gift rather than something to fear. In the Theravada Buddhist tradition, there's a meditation practice called Maranasati, mindfulness of death, that illustrates this wisdom. In this practice, one contemplates, death is certain, the time of death is uncertain. This contemplation is designed not to induce anxiety, but to awaken appreciation for the present moment and clarity about what truly matters. The uncertainty itself becomes a doorway to freedom. When we don't know exactly when death will arrive, we're invited to 1. Live each day with appropriate urgency. Not knowing when death will come encourages us to treat each day as precious without the desperate grasping that comes from a specific countdown. It's the difference between appreciating a sunset because it's beautiful and frantically trying to memorize a sunset because you know it's your last. The Buddha encouraged his disciples to practice as if their hair was on fire, with urgency and dedication. But this urgency came from clarity, not panic. 2. Hold plans lightly. Uncertainty about death's timing teaches us to make plans while holding them lightly. We can plant gardens we might not see bloom, start projects we might not finish, and nurture relationships without knowing their full arc. This isn't fatalism or passivity. It's a more realistic and flexible engagement with life that acknowledges both our agency and its limits. 3. Discover freedom within uncertainty. Perhaps most profoundly, not knowing when death will come invites us to discover freedom within uncertainty itself. Rather than seeing uncertainty as something to fear or eliminate, we can recognize it as the very space in which creativity, spontaneity, and authentic choice become possible. The Zen tradition particularly emphasizes this with its concept of not knowing mind, or beginner's mind, a mind that remains open, curious, and free from fixed conclusions. Throughout Buddhist history, we find stories of practitioners whose relationship with death was transformed through practice. These aren't stories of people who became immortal or escaped death, but who discovered profound freedom in relation to it. The story of Kisa Gotami. One of the most moving is the story of Kisa Gotami, a young mother whose only child died. Overwhelmed with grief, she carried her dead child from house to house, begging for medicine to revive him. Eventually, she came to the Buddha, who compassionately told her he could help, but she would need to bring him a mustard seed from a house where no one had ever died. As Kisa Gotami went from house to house, she gradually realized that death touches every family, every home. This realization didn't eliminate her grief, but it transformed it from a private torment to a recognition of our shared human condition. She returned to the Buddha, buried her child, and became a practitioner, eventually attaining profound realization. Kisa Gotami's story illustrates how facing death directly, not with denial or aversion, but with clear seeing, can lead to wisdom and compassion rather than despair. The death poem tradition. In Zen Buddhism, particularly in Japan, there's a tradition of writing a death poem, jisei, when one feels death approaching. These poems aren't expressions of fear or despair, but final distillations of the poet's insight and experience. The Zen master Kozan Ichikyo wrote this death poem before peacefully passing away at the age of 77. Empty-handed I entered the world barefoot, I leave it.my coming, my going, two simple happenings that got entangled. What's striking about these poems is their tone of acceptance, often with a touch of humor or beauty. They reflect a relationship with death transformed through practice, not an elimination of death, but a changed way of meeting it. How can we apply these Buddhist insights to our own relationship with death and its timing? Here are some practical approaches. 1. Regular contemplation of death's certainty. The Buddha recommended daily reflection on the certainty of death. This isn't morbid, it's realistic and ultimately liberating. we might reflect each morning. Death is certain. The time of death is uncertain. What is most important for me to focus on today? This simple practice can cut through trivial concerns and help us align our daily choices with our deepest values. 2. Present moment practice. Meditation practices that cultivate present moment awareness help us step out of the planning mind and into direct experience. This doesn't mean we never plan, but that we can do so without being completely identified with our plans. Even a few minutes of mindful breathing can shift our relationship with time from pure chronology to a more qualitative experience. 3. Examining our relationship with control. We can gently investigate our own attachment to control. Where do we insist that things must go according to our plans? Where do we resist the natural uncertainty of life? This investigation isn't about forcing ourselves to let go, but about seeing clearly how our grasping for certainty and control might actually be limiting our freedom and peace. 4. Cultivating appreciation without attachment. Buddhist practice offers a middle way between indifference and grasping. We can deeply appreciate the beauty and preciousness of life without the desperate clinging that comes from fear of loss. Practices like loving-kindness meditation, metta, help cultivate this appreciative but non-grasping relationship with ourselves, others, and life itself. 5. Finding community. The Buddha emphasized the importance of spiritual friendship and community, sangha. Facing mortality is easier when we don't do it alone. Finding or creating spaces where death can be discussed openly and honestly, without either denial or morbid fixation, can be profoundly supportive. The deepest Buddhist teachings point to a freedom that isn't dependent on external conditions, including whether or not we know when death will come. This freedom doesn't come from controlling circumstances or having perfect knowledge of the future. It comes from transforming our relationship with whatever arises in our experience. As the great Thai forest master Ajahn Chah taught, if you let go a little, you will have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you will have complete peace. This complete peace, what Buddhist traditions call nibbana or nirvana, isn't achieved by eliminating death or knowing its timing. It's realized through seeing clearly the nature of our experience and releasing our grasping at what cannot be grasped. In this light, both knowing and not knowing when death will come are ultimately workable. The key is not the external circumstance, but our internal relationship with it. As we conclude, a question lingers. If you were offered the chance to know exactly when you would die, would you want that knowledge? What would change in how you live today if you knew precisely how many days remained? Perhaps the most profound insight from Buddhist wisdom is that we don't need this knowledge to live fully. The awareness that death is certain, but its timing uncertain, can awaken us to the preciousness of each day without the burden of a countdown. In the end, what matters most may not be how much time we have, but how fully we inhabit the time we're given. How completely we show up for our own lives, moment by precious moment. If you found value in this exploration, please consider subscribing to our channel and sharing this video with others who might benefit. In our next video, we'll continue exploring the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern life. Until then, may you live with both the urgency that comes from knowing life is finite and the peace that comes from embracing its inherent uncertainty. Underscore this, too, will pass. This knowledge is the light of the world. Underscore, attributed to the Buddha.